Well, hello dear friends. I have a lovely little soap wrapper here which I thought would be fun to turn into a journal. So I've played around with how I would like to orientate my cover, because I've got a label here that's quite nice. I mean, I could do that as a cover, but I quite like that little thing. So the soap wrapper fitted onto the soap more or less like that, and I've just simply squashed it to the left. Then I'm going to take now my metal ruler, and I'm just going to gently open up the sides here so that now I actually have a nice little cover. I'm going to need something to line the inside of the cover with, just to give it a little bit of body. And I had a look through some of my paper and card, and I found this rather lovely sort of wavy paper. Yeah, it's a bit heavier than just a paper. It's a lightweight card, and I thought that that could be quite nice as rather a sort of dramatic inside to my cover. So I'm going to cut that in a minute. But I was also looking through some of my old Daphne's Diary magazines, and I found these lovely sort of medieval images here where the colors are rather harmonious with what I have already got there. Also found this that had these lovely sort of soft greens on it, mind and body, some images there, not that one. Actually don't know why I have this one out, that wasn't part of the plan. I pulled out these that had images of lemons, but I feel that they are a little bit too literal, but I might take something like a lemon there and fussy cut that out, so that's an option. Mind, body and health, I like that. I liked the lemon image that I found there that I could use. And then what else we've got here? These are rather fun floral images which I feel are in keeping with that kind of theme. So I've got a couple of them. I've got summer, autumn, winter and spring. So I've got those four. The magazine was just to illustrate to you where I got my pages from, but you could use any magazine. I'm going to use a piece of vellum or trace paper because that always looks nice over things, and it just kind of gives it a softer feel. So let me do you one of these images with a flower, and if you put that over it, it just veils it slightly and just sends it to the back a little bit. So I'm going to use a piece of vellum, and I have this piece of yellow card which I know is very harsh yellow, but I think that by the time I've done some work on that, that would be okay. And if you're looking where you can find some of these plain paper colors, you just want to get yourself a good old book of plain papers that you can tear out if you don't have them at home. So let me go and cut some of these cards to size, and I'll come back. So let me show you what I've done so far. I cut that dark green and stuck it in, and I've added just a little bit of papers that I've torn out. So there was that medieval page that had those ladies on it. Let me just find it here. You can see them sticking out there. There was a little bit of that left over, so that's part of that over there. And then in my middle page, this was part of that picture. So what I'm doing at this point in time is trying to link the colors up that I'm going to be using throughout the journal. So this piece of card has made my cover a little bit more sturdy. I've used a little bit of washi tape there and on the outside and a bit of text stamp. And then my next page carries on with this sort of lovely swirling pattern. I've brought in some leaves to represent the lemons, and then I mentioned that I quite fancied those flowers because I just felt they were sort of flowers that would have been had in that sort of medieval period. Again, brought in some leaves, some text stamp, some washi tape, some vellum. This would be a journaling spot. I think I'm going to probably do some splatters on here because I'm not happy that this yellow is quite as strong. I'm going to try and subdue it a little bit, maybe with some oxide sprays. This was a strip of this cover paper that was left over, so I'll use that there, and on the inside here as well with a little bit of washi tape. And then the vellum, I love the way it actually just gently softens all that's underneath there. So you've got a lovely journaling spot there. You can journal with a permanent marker on the vellum, the lemon theme coming through with the colors and with the images. And the medieval theme, I didn't want them just to be solid, so I used some of my flowers again. More flowers there, some of the lemon theme coming through with the tea, and that will be the inside cover. Love how the greens marry up there. So I'm going to need to look for something to use as a closure, and I'm going to need to look to subdue some of these pages, and then I'll come back and show you what I've actually done. I've used some of my Distress Oxide spray, this is the Lost Shadow, to just gently subdue quite a lot of the pages that I have put into my little journal. So you can see here that that's softened all these pages, and I've done that throughout. Now I'm having to look at things like what I'm going to do as embellishments. So let me just show you this step first of all. First of all, when I came to do the cover, I realized that although I'd subdued these colors, there were a couple of things that I wanted to be more dominant. So I have a range of these lovely, just normal pencil crowns. And what I've done with these is just to use some of the colors to gently work over what is already on the paper underneath, just pulling it forward. One thing about color is that whatever's on top is more dominant. So if you look at this lemon here, and you just see by me starting to shade a little bit on here how it's actually making this stand forward. So don't be afraid of using pencil crayons. Even if you don't have a load of different colors, you can actually use whatever you've got and layer one color on top of the other. I'm going to use one of these darker greens just up here, just to gently bring some of these colors to the forefront. I don't want to do all of them, but sometimes, you know, you don't want your work to look too flat. And just by doing this, you're adding just another layer of interest. Okay, so I can carry on playing with that. Then I have a sheet here of laminated plastic, and I've got some embellishments which I'm just going to glue in. So on my first page I have this little butterfly. I'm just using regular Elmer's glue, and because this is a nice large image, I'm just going to put a little bit around the edges and then stick that down. So I thought that would line up nicely there. Okay, and then as I work through my pages, I have put in some of the others. You'll see how beautifully now this has just softened those flowers which had quite strong colors before. On this page here I have two little embellishments that I want to pop on. One is this cute little, just a stamped image of a bird, and then I've got this other little bee which was also a stamped image. And I love using my stamps and then just coloring them with pencil crayons. I take them a sheet that I've stamped to work, and then I just spend my lunch hour doing this. Now with little things like that, they're quite difficult to get glue on without actually becoming messy. So on my piece of laminated plastic, all I do is put down a little bit of glue, and then I'm using a pair of tweezers just to grab my little bee. I'm going to just saturate the underside with glue, getting all my little feelers and legs into the glue itself, and then using my tweezers I will gently pop that down. So I thought the little bee could come over here like that, and then the little bird I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm not coloring this because I quite like the fact that it's just black and white. This gives you a lovely sort of gentle film underneath without having too much glue, and I thought that that little bird would sit rather nicely just in that sort of crown shape there. I had a little cloth here, I don't know what I've done with it. Okay, I'll just use my finger. Right, so I've got those glued down. On my next page here I have a little butterfly, and I'm just going to again dip it, because of the delicate feelers, into my glue. And think I'll place the butterfly here with the music notes. So you've got a nice space for journaling here as well. Here I've got loads of ephemera in here because I wasn't too sure what I would use, so I will just go through these quite quickly. I'm not going to use all of them. I'm going to put a bit more glue onto my plastic laminated sheet. I do find that this is magical, and if you leave the glue just to dry, you'll find that you're able to then just peel it off a little bit later on. So I quite fancy that colour butterfly. So we'll just do half in the glue, like that. Maybe put them over here. Just make sure that you do press all the little corners down. I'm going to leave that page simple. This one over here, I might take, what colour shall I do? Quite like this little brown butterfly that I have here. And again, this was just stamped images onto a piece of normal photocopy paper that I've just satin coloured. Very relaxing. Nice for a day like today. We've had such a lovely spell of beautiful, beautiful weather, and the last few days have been really cold. In fact, when I was taking my trainees back up to their transport from the farm area where I work, we had hail pelting on us when we were walking up. When was it? Thursday. It was actually quite sore. Anyway, we all survived, but the wind has picked up and there's definitely an Arctic kind of a feel. So let's have another little butterfly maybe here. And obviously you can really go to town by putting in pockets and all sorts of things into these little journals. You could put tuck spots, you could do belly band, you could do tabs, but because potentially I might give this away to someone as a gift, I want to keep it fairly simple, just so that they have the opportunity to do things. Put a little blue butterfly there because of that blue peeking up from below. And on this one, possibly we'll have a pink butterfly, a little bit bigger for the opposite page to the flowers. This feels as though it needs something down here. And then the last page, it's quite a big wide area and there's quite a lot of yellow, so I think I'm going to use this image here. And then the last thing that we're going to have to look at is just what kind of closure we have. So you might have picked up when I started this section that I have already glued a little circle onto here, which I'm going to use as my closure. So what I quite often do is I just use my punch and punch out circles from all sorts of things. These ones were from paint charts that I picked up at the hardware store. Some of them are just from pieces of magazine paper, some are book pages. So I found this one that had yellow and I've inked it up around the edge and used my crocodile just to make a hole and punch it through. And lastly, I have now this lovely piece of double-sided satin ribbon. It's 3 millimeters, and all I'm going to do is loop this around this little circle, which will be my closure, if my fingers will work today. Oh, I'm not good with fiddly things. There we go. And I'm just going to give it one quick little twist so it's got a nice edge there, like that. So that locks it now on to the actual ribbon, and then I'm going to just wrap it around. And I think that that's actually a pretty nice little neat closure for a little book made with a soap wrapper. So let's go through it again. That's the cover. That's your first page. And I'm just loving the fact that this was made with something that was so beautiful but would have been normally thrown away. I should have put something there to stop that glue wetting there. Never mind. So maybe use some of your soap wrappers in a future project. Worth a go. Thank you for joining me. Been lovely to have you here. Please consider subscribing to my channel and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Bye for now.